Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Clinton, first, congratulations, and thank you for your extraordinary service to our country during these past 4 years as Secretary of State. I believe the world is safer today because America is better understood around the world. And you have been instrumental in integrating diplomacy in our national security agenda. And I thank you for that, because I do think it has paid off in heavy dividends for the American people. I particularly want to acknowledge your leadership in advancing basic rights. Senator Boxer already acknowledged the gender equity issues that you have taken international leadership on. I also want to thank you for your help in dealing with corruption, particularly with transparency in the extractive industries and the progress that we've made in that regard. Benghazi was a tragedy. We've all acknowledged that, the loss of American life. And we've also acknowledged the bravery of those people on the ground. They did extraordinary service and saved lives, and that's what they're trained to do, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge that. Also, let me just point out that you have been very open with the committee. We had a hearing on December 20th with your deputies, and they provided all the information, and you're here today, and we thank you very much for that. I want to follow up on one area of Northern Africa. You point out the risk factors that we currently have in Northern Africa. Algeria is a reminder of the global security concerns. We do not know, as Senator Risch pointed out, the individuals who may have been involved in Libya may have been involved in Algeria. We don't know that, but we do know there's reports from the United Nations and others that weapons have gotten from Libya into Algeria, which points out our need as we look at transitions occurring in that region. Syria, Assad's not going to be there, we think, much longer. There's a lot of weapons in Syria. Are we, do we have a strategy to make sure that as we go through transition in countries that their weapons are, we're mindful that these weapons can end up harming U.S. interest, and it needs to be part of our strategy to make sure as we support alternative governments and the rebels that there is a strong priority in protecting the source of these weapons, not ending up harming Americans or harming our interests.
Well, Senator, you're absolutely right. One of the reasons that we and other government agencies were present in Benghazi is exactly that. We had a concerted effort to try to track down and find and recover as many man-pads and other very dangerous weapons as possible. Libya was awash in weapons before the revolution. Obviously, there were additional weapons introduced, but the vast, vast majority came out of Gaddafi warehouses and were, as they were saying, liberated, and then went on the black market, were seized by militias, seized by other groups, and have made their way out of Libya into other countries in the region, and have made their way to Syria, we believe. It is a red line for this administration with respect to Syria concerning the use of chemical weapons. Syria, as you probably know, in addition to having the fourth largest army before this revolution, has a very significant supply of chemical and biological weapons. Given the instability in Syria right now, what we are trying to do is to coordinate closely with a number of like-minded nations, neighbors, and partners to be able to work to try to prevent those from falling into the wrong hands, jihadist hands, Hezbollah hands, but also to try to work with the internal opposition for them to understand the dangers that are posed. So this Pandora's box, if you will, of weapons coming out of these countries in the Middle East and North Africa is the source of one of our biggest threats. There's no doubt that the Algerian terrorists had weapons from Libya. There's no doubt that the Malian remnants of AQIM have weapons from Libya. So we just have to do a much better job. The final thing I would say about this is, you know, AFRICOM was stood up about 10 years ago. I think a lot of people at the time wondered, why would we have another command in the world and why in Africa? I now think we need to pay much more attention to AFRICOM, to its capacity inside Africa. It's based in Stuttgart, Germany, for all kinds of complicated logistical and political reasons. Carter Ham has been a very dedicated leader of AFRICOM during his time there, but we're going to see more and more demands on AFRICOM, and I think that's something else that the Senate and the House are going to have to address.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Senator Rubio.